All right, 7:15 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News on this Monday, July 30th, 2018. Joining us in studio, Lafayette Mayor President, Mr. Joe Robideaux is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Been a pretty slow week for you? Not much really going on? No one coming in and out of the office?
Well, it's the slow summer months, right?
So, as you can imagine, I think my email box is probably over 100 emails, just about different things, from deconsolidation to LUS to the sheriff's tax. I mean, there's so many different things, and I know there are some things you can't speak to only because you may not know enough about it, but I decided to pare down some of their questions to you.
Okay.
So let's just do some quick hits.
All right.
LUS, proposed management deal, is that where we are right now?
Yeah, we're waiting on them to finish an assessment and evaluation of the operations of LUS for me.
Okay.
And
so
I'm hoping that'll come in the next, 3 to 4 weeks.
The second part of that from this listener was it a sale initially?
No, it was never a sale. There was a lot of discussions with a lot of folks about sales. That goes back as far as the campaign. I'm sure that goes back into Joey's term. But I just never really. I couldn't get past the part. I didn't want to give up the assets, because then if the sale goes south, if the company goes bankrupt, if it's a WorldCom deal, whoever it is you're dealing with, they're maybe solvent and really good now, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, then you're left with no assets. You don't have anything to produce any electricity. You don't really have any of the generating capacity you currently have. So the sale was never really interest to me from anybody's perspective. So the Bernhard Group came back and said, well, look, what if you keep all the assets, you maintain the ownership, it's still run as LUS, all the employees are still LCG employees, we'll upgrade them all, and we'll start servicing the debt and whatever else we can come up with. But that's a unique kind of animal, so we'll want to go in and dig in and look at the operations in a little bit more detail to make sure that it makes sense for us. But in exchange for letting us do that, we will give you a full assessment of LUS. And so that's really where it ended up. That's where it is today. They're in the middle. I think they have finished, out in the field. Now they're just putting the report together. So, like I said, I hope to have something in a month or so just to see about the efficiencies and see if it makes sense. I mean, it may make sense. It may not make sense.
Okay, so Jamie from Youngsville wrote in and said, were there financial issues at LUS that would require outside management now?
Oh, well, there's always outside issues. I mean, like the regulatory environment for the coal plant. I can say, yeah, we're going to bring somebody internally up to that position. I can hire somebody from the outside. But with all the alternative energy, with the coal plants, energy is a very complex industry to operate in. I mean, it is not. I mean, you're dealing with major global corporations. And so, I just have to be a realist. I mean, can we do this internally for the next 100 years in the environment that utilities are going from within? And maybe we can, or with a person that we bring in from the outside. Or does it make sense to put us in the best position possible with a talented management team? And so, I try not to let emotions affect my decision. I love LUS, I love the story, but the reality is we buy most of our electricity now. 60-something% we buy. We produce locally about 2%. The Walker Road plant's been closed since 2013. We produce most of what we produce is in Boyce near Alexandria at the coal plant, which is about 30%, and then we buy the 60-something% off of the market. And look, and that's monitored on a hour-by-hour basis, because you have to say, is it cheaper to produce it from the lignite plant, or is it cheaper to buy it? And so that's monitored constantly. So it's complicated, and there's no crystal ball that's going to tell you this is the right decision. You just have to analyze everything and put yourself in a position. And again, I don't have the document to analyze yet, so I don't know if it's the best decision to go outside.
Well, I'm sure, though, that when Barnhard approached you or you approached them or whatever, that they had to have some idea in mind about the benefit to them, which obviously their issue is financial. But they would obviously come to you and say, okay, this would be the benefit to Lafayette, to the city, and to the taxpayers. Have they suggested what some of those benefits would be?
Oh, sure. Like and I guess you're right, I casually mentioned that they would upgrade all our facilities, right? So they'd look at the coal plant and say, look, this would be better if it was a natural gas plant. And the cost of doing that's whatever, 70 million, 120 million, whatever it is to convert. There's alternative energy sources. We need to look at solar a lot more aggressively than we have in the past. But that's a really expensive proposition, and not one that we can just, as a government, we could say we want to be it, but then are we willing to go borrow money, pay back that debt with interest, and keep our fingers crossed? So the upgrade of the facility is a big deal. They would continue to service the 200 and something million of debt that we already have. And, you know, the upgrade is to me is the biggest piece, right? I'm getting all of these upgrades that I'm going to own, you know, paid for by somebody else, so I don't have to borrow the money. I don't have to take the risk of hoping that it works out and that we make the right decision in natural gas, or whatever, the solar, whatever it is. And it was, then of course there was a talk of, and so then when they'll do their calculation and say, all right, we think we will make this much, and so we're willing to give you a lump sum payment of X. And I think the original discussions, they estimated it in the $250 million range. And whether that's enough or not, you know, I have to really look at that, because it's got to replace the ILOT, you know, and the cash flow of the ILOT to the city budget. I'm not going to blow a hole in the city budget. So there's a lot to consider. But between the cash payment and the upgrades, servicing the existing debt, you know, and it frees up our debt capacity. I mean, if I need to go borrow money now for drainage, roads, and bridges, I have more capacity because I'm not having to go borrow anymore.
So we know a lot of projects on this level that LCG deals with goes through a bid process. Is there are you open to other businesses who might be able to do the same thing this one group is doing for cheaper, or better for the either customers or better for the city and parish?
Sure. I mean, we're wide open, and I've had other folks now start to call in and want to come and manage it. The reality is there's a small number of folks that can go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on upgrades that this kind of deal would require. So you're limited in that way. And but yeah, I mean, there's no signed agreement. There's nothing. They are the ones that came back with the idea that was certainly intriguing enough to continue discussions, and that's where it is.
So what would theoretically, or at this point, I mean, obviously we don't know exactly what it would be if it was a deal or whatever, but how would it work? So they manage us, and we get some money up front, and then we'd get, obviously, the construction of whatever we need and the upgrades to the facilities. But then who gets the profits? I mean, how would it work? What was their idea coming forward as to how this all would play out?
Yeah, so if you think of LUS as a business as opposed to what it is, it's easiest to think of it they do, they run their operations. And then there's money left over that they use for capital upgrades and that they, hang on to in reserves. And so, or build new generation, whatever they think is the best use of the money. And so any group that comes in would be looking at that same thing, except they would say, all right, whatever's left over, is the money that I'm going to use to pay myself back for all of the upgrades and for the upfront money that we've fronted to the city. We're going to recoup that over the course of the next X number of years. So that's kind of how I envision it.
What about rates for customers? Is there some sort of guarantee that rates will stay the same, or overall bills, maybe the rate's the same, but is there going to be a line item for management or administrative fees?
No, I don't think it would be structured that way. I think in the early discussions, I said, look, I wouldn't do anything unless we could freeze rates for some period of time, just to allow folks to say, okay, I don't have to worry about it for the next, couple of 3-4 years, whatever it is. After that, it would be the exact same as what it is now, that if LUS wants a rate increase, they got to go, beg the council for it. And sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't, and it would still be under the LPUA.
And so that area would still remain under the LPUA.
LPUA, the council.
We're going to move on to deconsolidation.
Sure.
Obviously another big issue, but I have to ask, I don't want to skirt the issue because the majority of our questions, I don't think it's the most important issue, but it's definitely worth asking about the political side of it. A bunch has been written about the history of you and your political campaigns and the folks involved in the Bernhardt deal. How does that play into all this? And why are – because I think a lot of people are concerned. Why are they the company? And I hear you say that you're willing to hear from more, but we know there is a history with these folks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've obviously known Mike for a long time. But Picard made the introduction. I've known those guys. I know Randy Haney. I mean, I know all the lobbyists now for a long, long time, probably well over 20 years. I know Jody Montalero with Entergy, great guy. I served, he was Entergy's government liaison, so I had lunch with him coincidentally the day I returned from vacation in the middle of this news story at Blue Dog and the CEO of Entergy. I mean, it had been scheduled for a couple of months, and so we kept it. So we have, conversations all the time. My relationships, don't really factor into any of my decisions. If someone wants to make an introduction, I'm certainly willing to meet with anybody. And it just so happened in this particular case that it was the Picard group that introduced me to Jim Bernhardt. I had known his brother Kenny here in town, but I don't think I'd ever met Jim, even when I served in Baton Rouge. So, we had that meeting similar to the meetings I had with the other major players, and but they were the only ones that came back with an alternative to a sale. And so I figured I could get a pretty good operational assessment out of this. At the end of the day, I'm going to have a report where at least what they think, where we do a really good job operationally and where we need to concentrate our efforts. So I think, it's something that
Are
we're
you
looking
worried,
at.
though? Are you worried a little bit about their report? Because they're going to give a report, but it's not necessarily objective. I mean, because their goal is to make money, and I mean, they would like to be able to manage. I mean, are you a little bit worried about that? Is there not maybe an idea of having an independent group come in and take a look at what strengths and weaknesses really might be?
Yeah, well, and it's important to keep in mind, too, that the whole analysis and evaluation is running through our engineer of record, which is a company called New Gen out of Dallas, which I think has been the engineer of record for a long, long time. So all of the information that they're getting. I'm not naive. So, I know that there may be some biases built in there, but at the end of the day, they're going to highlight areas where we need to focus our attention on. And then I get to decide, do we have the technical capability of living in that environment and making good decisions? And so, I understand, I approach everything a little bit jaded also, but it is going to tell me where we're doing a really good job, and it is going to tell me areas that we need to focus on. So I think there'll be a lot of value in that. And it's not costing us anything. Everything's on their dime. So
there was some, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, so what would be the process if you end up liking the ideas that they have? So would you then present an ordinance to the council? Does it go to the LPUA? What's kind of the process?
I guess the process would be that it would go to the LPUA. LPUA would go to the full council. Full council then would decide to go to the voters. I think that would be the process, but I won't even bring it to the council because once I have the report, all those discussions are going to be had. If the council's like, okay, no, this is worth looking into some more. Let's go through the process. Then great, that's what I'll do. If the council's like, no, go find somebody to take Terry's place, then that's the avenue I'll take. But they're going to be involved as soon as I have the report, probably before then, and so we'll know what
they're thinking,
what's going to happen. But that is the actual process, assuming something went forward.
Okay.
Some folks had concerns about LUS fiber on that side, which is expanding. I mean, people in certain areas are just chomping at the bit to get it in their neighborhood. What effect, if any, will this have?
Yeah, this doesn't affect fiber at all. In fact, I'm splitting fiber and utilities apart and giving fiber its own department. I think it's been around for over a decade. It's a $40-something million enterprise revenue-wise. It's time for it to be on its own. So
it will be on LUS
separate.
fiber will run independently from the utility.
Yes.
So that's the idea, whether the management deal happens?
That's part of the budget. That's right.
Okay.
That decision had been made prior to all of that.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a 1-minute break.
Okay.
We're going to reset. We'll come back and talk about deconsolidation. What does it mean? Where are we? And how's that vote going to go in December? His thoughts. Mayor President Joe Robideaux joins us on Acadiana's Morning News. We'll continue next. All right, 7:32 this Monday, July 30th, 2018. We're joined still by Lafayette Mayor President Joe Robideaux. I want to talk about deconsolidation. or what I like to call, for lack of a better term, deconsolidation, because, I think people have an idea of one thing when you say that, and it's a total disconnect of everything. When the first council meeting on this happened, which there were a ton of people in attendance, there were some questions for you about where you were on the issue. Did you support it? And at the time, you had said you wanted some more time to kind of look at the details, and you weren't really on either side. Has that changed? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I also said conceptually I think it's good, and I applauded the council for looking at it from the legislative perspective, meaning they're at their level, where they basically said, look, we're going to separate it out where we have the two councils, right? The thing that I was interested in was I need to see how the maps are going to be drawn. I'm going to see what that, what the makeup is going to be, because really my analysis, I'm not going to base it just on the concept.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the details of the maps and what it meant for the city as far as representation within the city and what it meant for the parish and what that representation was going to look like. I think we got the updated maps just
on Friday.
So I hadn't had a chance to look at those in detail, although I don't think the parish one changed. And so if that is in fact the case, I mean, the biggest issue I had with the 5 districts of the parish that were all parish-wide is that 3 of those districts were controlled by outside the parish, and 2 were city, controlled by the city, majority city residents. 3 of them were controlled by non-city residents. Well, the population, as it stands today, the city has more population. So why would the city only have 2 majority districts in the non-city 3? So that's one issue. That it's hard for me to look at the city residents and say, hey, this is a good deal, because you should have 3 and the non-city should have 2. So that's the one issue I'm really trying to dig into and look at the percentages and how close it is. But it's hard when it's only 5 seats to get to the percentages that you need, because someone's going to have 60% representation, someone's going to have 40. Well, all the parish money, all the parish drainage money goes to that council, and that means that 3 non-cities are controlling the $10 million a year of drainage money. So,
so
the city
really
residents would be,
I mean, that's the thing.
The city residents would be worried, well, how much of any of that are we going to get now that we, don't have what would be fair representation based on population. That's not to mention that the city residents pay 60-something% of that tax. I mean, so
could you just realign the existing council members and redraw those districts without a separate body? Keep 9, so maybe you have 5, the city divided into 5 and the parish divided into 4. Is that an option?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an option. I mean, there's a lot of options, right? But certainly that would be one.
Right.
And then you run into the issue of we could do it now knowing that we're going to change it in a year and a half because there's going to be another.
But how are you going to break a tie, though, if you have 4 council people?
Well, no, he was saying 5. He was saying keep the 9.
Yeah, but 5 in the city?
For the parish. I was saying 5
in the
city,
parish?
But you would still need that tiebreaker.
If you leave the
4 in the parish.
Well, no, all of them would vote for the parish.
Okay.
Because they're all parish residents.
That's true.
Everybody lives there. So all 9 would vote on parish issues.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, excuse me.
The city would be that. So there's that. There's the weighted average. There's, the current maps that are actually going to be in front of council on August the 7th.
If this would go through and voters approve this, the way it stands right now, you would remain mayor-president over both. And I've seen it written in several stories. I've heard it in callers saying they think the biggest problem, and it's the same problem we have right now in their opinion, is you can't negotiate with yourself. You're over the parish as a whole, but you're also over the city. To the Lafayette residents who want autonomy, do you think they need a mayor?
Yeah, so, I mean, that begs that question also, and that probably would be somebody calling, some council person calling for that as the next step in the process. To me, it's no different than it is now, right? So it doesn't need to be part of this discussion, but whether this passes or fails, I'm still, sometimes arguing with myself.
It's hard to do.
Would you have a preference? Would you want to be parish president versus being mayor of Lafayette? If, let's say the city does that, this passes, and the city then decides, oh, well, wait, let's have a mayor. Would you have a preference?
I enjoy both. I mean, there's a rural component to the parish that's a unique set of challenges.
Sure.
Then obviously the city, has its own set of challenges. And then there's the challenge, which is really kind of what I ran on, which is, hey, but we're all Lafayette Parish. Let's all figure out how to do this together in the best way possible. I feel like we've accomplished that in a lot of ways, not totally. I mean, I'm never going to say we're there. Okay, we don't have to work on our relationships anymore. Everybody's
so happy. Woo, yeah.
But that's a tough question. I mean, because in the position I'm in right now, it's both, and so I enjoy both. So I'm not going to pick a side.
Is there something we could do, even in the short term, if this is tabled and it does not go forward, with all the unincorporated area? There's been talk about maybe making all the unincorporated area make these municipalities all take it, so that there's just city
somebody
limits.
Take a piece, somebody take a piece, somebody take a piece, somebody take a piece.
Would that solve some problems, especially when it has to do with financial issues?
Well, it would, except that the residents in the unincorporated have to say, I want to be in Lafayette, or I want to be in Bruce, or I want to be in Youngsville. So we can map it out and make it all pretty and say, well, you're contiguous to Lafayette, so that's where you need to be. And they may say, I'd rather be in Scott. Well, but you're not really connected. So
right.
And again, without the people that live in the unincorporated area willing to say, we want to be in this town or another, or another, then we can't force it.
Some have asked the question too, whether or not this deconsolidation issue, how come it didn't get broken down into? And I mean, I know this is what the committee talked about and what they looked at. Why not make it one piece at a time? Take one bite of the apple at a time.
Well, and I think that was what they were intending to do. Let's just take the council piece. Forget about all the other stuff. Let's just figure out how to handle the council. And of course, the council's going to fuss at me if I don't say, look, it's not deconsolidation, right? I mean, that's been the mantra, that it's not deconsolidation. We're trying to give the city its own
autonomy, and the parish its own
council
autonomy too,
to be able to answer, and then in the parish have a parish-wide one. But I think the council would argue they are taking this is the one piece. Now it's grown a little bit, but it's they're trying to say let's tackle the council issue first.
Okay, I like to ask people when they're in here, especially someone who hasn't been in the role for 20 years, did you think you were going to have this conversation when you were running? It seems like it's been something that has come up. It's been brought up under the term deconsolidation before, and it has failed before.
Yeah, it's failed. Even the city of Lafayette voted against total deconsolidation. It wasn't just the parish guys that saw it. So, yeah, I mean, it's an issue that's out there. It certainly came up during the campaign, and it's just whether or not the council, wanted to take it up as an initiative or not, and enough of them did that we're having the conversation.
All right. Lafayette Mayor President Joel Robideaux, we appreciate your time this morning.
Sure, glad to be here.
Great information.
Thank you.
We'll get this interview posted so you can listen to it again. Share it across the universe at KPEL965.com. 7:41 now. We're back next.